I am beyond delighted to be co-hosting with my friend Holly Alberti from Healthy Headie Lifestyles. A little bit of background on why this session is happening and why I wanted to bring Holly on to speak. A lot of us in the cannabis entrepreneurial circles have noticed a few things in regards to our customers, where we have a lot of differentiating level setting on what people actually understand about cannabis, about using cannabis paraphernalia. And when I was thinking about how it would be best to get cannabis entrepreneurs together to help educate our customers collectively, the person that I obviously thought of was Holly from Healthy Headie. She has the unique experience of having a business where she goes into consumers' homes directly to discuss with them how to partake and how to do so responsibly, and she does it in a way that I thought would be fantastic. And so the reason that we're here today is for you to get a little bit of an inside look or pull back the curtain a little bit on what it's like for Holly when she goes into her sessions with other customers so that you can learn from her. We'll have a bit of a back and forth about that. I'll give us a chance to ask any questions if you're interested, and then we're going to change tracks a little bit and discuss how Healthy Headie has been doing in regards to their funding and startup efforts, which are very exciting, and see if there's anything we can do or learn a little bit more from Holly. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend and dear entrepreneur, co-entrepreneur, Holly from Healthy Headie. Holly.
Hello, everyone. I hope that everybody is able to hear okay, and of course, Starlight is checking your responses in the group chat. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here to speak to everybody. I see that there are some folks that have joined in from Massachusetts and some individuals that we know very well who are also advocates in the cannabis space, and I thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the insight that I have to share with you, as well as Starlight's information, and just really trying to do what we can to kind of break that stigma. And so I don't want to get off too topic, but my name is Holly. I am the founder and CEO of Healthy Headie Lifestyle, and Healthy Headie was developed really out of a place of compassion. My husband and I have been very passionate and interested in this plant for many years. We believe that the cannabis plant has a lot of amazing properties, both medicinally, spiritually even. There are so many components that we see positive benefits that individuals have had by utilizing this plant. And we did a lot more education. We went to Oaksterdam University in 2011, which was one of the only places that you could go to find out more information, outside of a kind of an online atmosphere. So we went there to gather as much insight and information that we could, and from there we essentially came back to Massachusetts and became a centralized resource. We started talking more about what we thought of the plant, what others have had interactions with the plant. We started telling their stories. We had, and I know that there's some of you on the webinar today that have had these similar stories where a friend or family member has interacted with cannabis in some capacity and found it to be very beneficial in a number of different levels. And as soon as you have that direct personal interaction with the plant, it really becomes easier. But clearly there's a whole group of individuals and demographic of people that don't have the level or insight and knowledge when it comes to the plant and cannabis. So when we came back from California, we were doing some internal research as well out at a farm there, and we got home and realized that our phone started ringing, people asking us more information about cannabis in general, the Massachusetts Medical Initiative that was the medical program that was launching at the time, and really just questioning a lot of the pieces of reefer madness that they had been taught. And quickly, Steve and I started being able to facilitate answering questions really over the phone, and we recognized that people still had a really thick stigma. So even answering something over the phone was sometimes a challenge because they thought that the conversation was being recorded or whatever capacity. There was a lot of nervousness happening at that point. And so we decided that going in home and providing that hands-on approach was really something that was missing from this industry, especially when it comes to all the tools, devices, and as you had referenced, paraphernalia. There are a lot of things that you can use to ingest your medicine. We all know about smoking or combustion using a pipe, smoking a joint, using a bong. However, there's this multitude of other forms that you could utilize to consume the cannabis. And we found that people were very self-conscious about going through the process and understanding exactly how to operate the device. And if they didn't have that information out the gate, most likely they weren't going to use it correctly, and they could actually just leave that device. They wouldn't use it to its capacity, and it would just sit in a closet like many of the ones that we had. And so we started going in and providing this really educational component. We started teaching people a little bit, just as a base level of Cannabis 101. What is cannabis? Where does it come from? What are cannabinoids? How many cannabinoids do we currently know about, which this number changes as we discover and do more research into the plant, but really just giving a simple baseline of information. And the second portion of what we do is the demonstration. So we would bring in a device and actually walk through with the individual how that device operates. So whether it's how to turn it on, how to load it, how to clean it, any routine maintenance that's going to be occurring on a regular basis. And then the last portion is if they're comfortable at that point with the device and they're looking to change their methods of consumption or looking at an alternative for consumption for cannabis, then they can purchase the device right then and there in the comfort of their home. And then from there, you have this independent consultant really that can answer questions for you moving forward, and in the discovery of your cannabis lifestyle, really being a resource for you as an individual. And then also in the community sense, we see that we come from a huge community back east where everybody is very interested in a progression of this plant and utilizing it for different resources. We think it's absolutely not fair that we're in prohibition at this point. And so the way that we found that we could make a difference essentially in the world is if we can bring this education to those individuals that aren't going to go to the dispensary, they may not go to a head shop or a smoke shop, they're not going to go online because it's completely overwhelming. I have a hard time using webinars. So that's the individual that we saw that was lacking that education, and we wanted to also create jobs and create an opportunity for everybody in this space. We found that there's a ton of potential if you have capital to be able to open a dispensary, a grow, a facility, cultivation. But the everyday consumer, the everyday individual, how do they get involved more so than just calling their representatives? How do they actually become part of the industry? So we saw that the Tupperware model and direct selling or Pampered Chef had worked very well to sell devices for your kitchen. And so essentially these devices we now bring in are for your use and lifestyle of cannabis. So from that, really, Healthy Headie Lifestyle was born, and it's more than just a direct selling platform. It really is a platform to disseminate information, education, get a movement of individuals across the globe to understand that we have this potential to change the stigma that we've been taught about this plant. How do we do that? How do we do this together? And how do we create opportunities for all of us at the same time? So that's kind of the birth of what Healthy Headie Lifestyle is all about.
Thank you so much, Holly. So one of the reasons that I wanted to point out why this is so important. Sorry, I'm getting the feedback. Same for you, or just?
No, I don't hear it.
Okay, fantastic. Part of the reason that I think this is important, let me 1 second. I'm seeing people saying I'm getting feedback.
I just saw them getting feedback as well.
May I please? How about this? No? Still there. How about now? Still feedback. All right.
Want to mute me?
Yeah, let's try muting you and see if that works. Is that better? That sounds great. We'll see what we can do afterwards. All right. Part of the reason that this is so imperative, from my perspective, I really work primarily with cannabis entrepreneurs and helping them build their business and their strategy in order to have a long-term level of success. A lot about cannabis right now is an artificial environment because of the legislation that varies across every state, because of the way that businesses are conducted, because of the fact that advertising is mostly repressed. Cannabis entrepreneurs are kind of operating in an artificial, what I like to call the goldfish bowl, right? It's a little isolated from everything and everybody, and it's not quite the thriving live ocean that we're used to. The thing about that is that most people perceive the ocean is a bit dangerous with sharks, and entrepreneurs often consider themselves either at risk of becoming a shark or at risk of becoming shark food. And so what I do is I work with cannabis entrepreneurs to create a community around their business, because the metaphor I like to use is that there are shark predators, really, blackfish, killer whales, orcas, you might know them as a bunch of different names. But the difference with blackfish is that they swim in pods and they work together and they learn from each other. And the biggest reason that I wanted to have Holly on today was not just to have her share her insights, but also to give the other entrepreneurs that we're connected with different tools and mechanisms to create communities around their businesses and brands. Your business, your brand, in order for it to have long-term strategy, in order for you to have a magnetic customer base, you want to really truly cultivate a community around your products and your business, and even yourself. And one of the first ways of doing that is educating the customer base, because the act of education automatically creates community. If you're the business that made me feel safe and comfortable in learning about something new and made me feel like I could ask stupid questions or kind of navigate the unknown waters of cannabis in an easy, effective manner, I immediately feel more drawn to you, your company, and your products as a result. Not to mention, that relationship can be cultivated over time so that when your company has new products to offer, or you have other people that you would like to promote their products to your community, you have a sense of leadership and leverage with your community in order to make that impact. Part of the reason, again, why I wanted to have Holly here was so that she could demonstrate what it's like for her to go through this education process with her customers. I encourage you to close your other tabs and multitask as little as possible, and maybe take some notes on what her suggestions are so that you too can leverage what she's sharing in order to make the community around your business and your brand even stronger. So, to our specific title, Holly, thank you so much again for being here. Today we're going to talk about how to turn naive cannabis consumers into educated customers. Holly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, so let me know how the feedback sounds. And thank you very much, Starlight, for a fabulous introduction. And the reason that I'm here is because I had an opportunity to meet Starlight, and we absolutely connected. I think that this is an absolutely scary place to be in. The cannabis industry is wonderful, and I am grateful that we're here, but at the end of the day, we face different restrictions, different roadblocks, speed bumps than any other industry. And to be able to find a community and to have like-minded individuals is something that's really important, because it's also going to help the progression of this movement as a whole. So when I heard what Starlight was putting together with Blackfish, Blackfish Academy, and some of the webinars, and what she was going to be looking to doing, I absolutely wanted to be a part of that. Because I feel as though my experience is going to be helpful for those going through the experience as well, as a new first-time business owner, entrepreneur, and then also going back to the educational component. There is so much power when it comes to education, and right now there's a overwhelming amount of information, and that's very hard to navigate through. We found that kind of in our test rounds and when our studies and what we were doing and when we were starting this company, I kind of envisioned my grandmother, and she's the sweetest woman in the world, and she's very healthy. She takes lots of vitamins, and primarily doesn't take prescriptions or medications. And I thought of her going to a health food store and being introduced to CBD oil. And not the good stuff, because there absolutely is companies out there that are doing this right, but the company that maybe is manufacturing it overseas and it's industrialized and it's not actually full of the cannabinoids that we're looking for in our body to create either the entourage effect or in lock into our CB receptors, and I can talk a little bit about that in a moment. I saw that this was a huge group of individuals that would be vulnerable to that shark mentality, as you just mentioned. Those individuals that see them only as a consumer. And so I thought that this was horrible. I didn't want my grandmother to be taken advantage of. I didn't want anyone's parents to be taken advantage of, never mind their grandparents. And how are we able to recognize or promote or expose companies that are doing it right, that are doing it for the right reasons, and bring those to essentially the living room, right, of the consumer? We found that, as with all education, bite-sized, digestible information is the way to go. I have a fantastic team that some of you on this call have already interacted with. Steve does all of our training and onboarding at this time. We make sure that we're doing a lot of this hands-on as we are a growing company, and we want to make sure that the early adopters that we're bringing on to Healthy Headie Lifestyle meet our value assessment and our philosophy as a company. We see this as a fantastic opportunity, clearly, going national from our mom and pop days back in Massachusetts to where we are today, and knowing that the power that we bring through our network of distributors, we have this opportunity to really educate the masses and bring a lot of information to those who may have never found it before, or just make it easier for those that are looking for it to find. And I go back to what I've learned in kind of politics, right? So it's easy, digestible sound bites. People like sound bites. We bring the store to your door. That's an easy tag that people can understand what we're doing. Whenever you're educating somebody, it's important to repeat and make sure that you're bringing back the core value or whatever the specific task or the specific item that you're trying to review. If it's a vaporizer, you want to go through and show them each piece, but you also want to ask back to make sure that they're comprehending the information. And we found that this is true both with our consultants when we're training our consultants, as well as the end user customer. So I go back to my grandmother again, and she's interested, maybe it's cataracts, and she's interested in finding some type of alternative resource. Well, from that point, she really has no idea where to go, because as previous kind of dropped upon, my doctor's not going to tell me that this is an opportunity or an option in the repertoire of all healing modalities. It doesn't really come up unless you have a very progressive doctor, and if you do, I'd love to talk to them. There are some doctors on the East Coast, Dr. Uman, who is fantastic at what she does in providing education when it comes to becoming a medical patient in Massachusetts. But right now, it's not part of our culture. When we go to the doctors, it's specific items that they're looking at. They're just starting to talk more about diet. Nutrition is very important for all of us. You are what you eat. And that's just as important when we talk about cannabis. We as human beings have receptors in our body, CB1 and CB2 receptors. These receptors actually speak to the cannabinoids, or the chemical compounds that we find in cannabis. The one that we all know and love is THC. Well, some of us love. Some of us don't like that psychotropic, euphoric effect. And that's THC, just one of the cannabinoids that make up this amazing plant. CBD is one that's been getting a lot more press and information. So those two bits of information that I just gave to you, we break it down to be able to teach our consultant so that they can then go into the consumer's home and educate them. I found that a few years ago when I was trying to explain to people the benefits, the stigma, the lies that we've been told from Reefer Madness, I found that people said, well, that can't be true. Who says? And it's very easy to go onto the internet, Google some information, and there's lots of resources, and they're becoming more prevalent every day. I have a friend who understands what we're doing, but doesn't quite understand the power behind this plant. And I'll never forget the day that it was on The Doctors, which I think is Fox 25, very mainstream 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock show. She called me in a frenzy saying, oh my gosh, you're right. They're talking about it on Fox 25. The Doctors, have you heard of them? And so here I am, we've been friends for 15 years. What I was telling her didn't really matter. But the people on TV, on Fox 25, the doctors, as soon as they told her that there might be or may be some type of medicinal or benefit from utilizing cannabis in your lifestyle, she was convinced that there was more to it. Same thing with my grandmother. For those of you who are familiar with the Sanjay Gupta Weeds CNN special or documentary, I think that opened a lot of people's eyes. I think that because it was in mainstream, that these individuals were able to kind of grasp it and understand that this is something that may be an option. Might be not for them, but maybe their friend who has a child that needs it, or somebody else who has a parent who's going through cancer or some other ailment that may be beneficial. So each time that we have conversations as individuals, and this is something Starlight and I really, kind of radiate, is when we have the opportunity, whether it's at a grocery store or on a plane or at a convention, even if it's a specific cannabis convention, we take that opportunity to engage in conversation, to try to get the individual to think a little bit more about what they've been told or what they've been taught, and the reality of what there may be. We find that, again, that interaction with your doctor, it might not be coming from there. So there's other alternatives that we look at in our lifestyle where you may or may not have the potential to be introduced to cannabis. But for the everyday individual, they'll have to find it on their own. They'll have to interact with it on their own. Depending on your state regulations, it's going to depend on how you can obtain medicine, whether it's in a recreational or retail level or adult use, like Colorado and Washington, or like Massachusetts, where they have a very specific program, or California, where, again, it's been around for a little bit longer, so their program's a little bit easier to navigate. But still, finding a resource for your cannabis then becomes this next challenge. If you don't have dispensaries in your location, what do you do? Do you know how to cultivate? Do you know what a caregiver is? If you're in California or a state that has dispensaries, are you comfortable with the one that you're going to go to? Are they compliant? Did they just actually come to be last night, pop a vinyl banner up and say we're open and we're doing a sale? Because that happens. And so as an individual or as an advocate for somebody else, you want to make sure that where you're turning that individual, where you're pointing them in the direction, that it's factual information, that it's been tested by somebody else or a third party, and that you can provide this content to them knowing that it is in fact valid. And I just was involved on a great comment on Facebook. Betty Aldworth, who runs Students for Sensible Drug Policy. Students for Sensible Drug Policy, I wish I knew about it when I was a student. It's all about just drugs in general and looking at the way that we can change this stigma. And she started this post on saying, when you interact with somebody for the first time about cannabis, where do you send them? I recommend everybody on this call watch a fantastic documentary called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. It's in conjunction with this fantastic advocate, Jack Herer, who also has a strain named after him as well. It's a fantastic sativa strain. And years ago, I mean, and this is all stuff that, you know, if you grew up in the counterculture, then you're seeing a lot of things kind of repeat themselves. If you're my age and then you were just kind of exposed to it by other individuals, you're understanding kind of where they were at this point. He was an advocate years ago that put this documentary together to talk about why we are in prohibition. And I think that as a conversation starter is huge. Prior to 1937, we were able to have this as a medicine. It was listed in our pharmacopoeia, in the pharmaceuticals for our medicine here in the United States of America. So when you called the doctor, you brought that little black bag, and sure enough, there was probably something in there that contained cannabis. And people don't recognize that. They think that this is an illegal drug, a substance that will make you go crazy, that will make you do things that are completely horrible, terroristic. It's just something that, we've been taught. And that's something that you're taught throughout school, through DARE programs. And now we're seeing that this, once again, Sanjay's talked about it. We've seen it on mainstream media. It's getting more and more attention. And we absolutely have reached that tipping point. So it's really important to make sure that the information that you're providing is factual. Going to resources like Americans for Safe Access, it's a fantastic website. When someone asks you specifically, I have an ailment, would cannabis may or may not be a benefit for what I'm looking for? You can actually send them to that website, Americans for Safe Access, and they have a specific document that will talk about cancer and cannabis, glaucoma and cannabis, arthritis and cannabis, whatever the ailment is. And it talks about the studies that have been conducted. And when we talk about studies, most of these studies, unfortunately, have not been done in the United States. However, they've been done in other countries, and we need to look at their information as valid. Just because it wasn't done here through our FDA program doesn't mean that it's not factual. So there's I could list on even PubMed. PubMed's a great resource as well, where you can find real studies that are happening real time. The International Association of Cannabinoid Medicine Database. This is a new one that I just learned about. That, again, finding specific scientific studies that back up people's claims of how they feel, or they're claiming that it makes them feel. Another that I had been turned on to really early on was patients out of time. I apologize. So Patients Out of Time, their website is actually medicalcannabis.com, and they have a fantastic resource, multitude of information. How do you approach your doctor? How to have a conversation with your doctor about this? So there is a ton of information that is available to every individual out there, but it's weeding through it all. It's finding what's valid and combining that and packaging it so that an everyday individual consumer can understand it. And that's what we're doing right now. We're working with a training portion, some existing businesses within the cannabis space that have done this research, and putting it into a very easy and digestible breakdown so that we can then take that on a Tuesday afternoon while you're waiting for your kids at the bus stop and have a great conversation with the other mom and really be able to bring about some facts behind it and say, this is why. So without getting too off, and I've got to keep my eye on time, there is absolutely a huge, we call them canna-curious, right? There's just individuals who may not have as much information as some of the people on this call, that may not have the same level of education and information that Starlight and I have. And that's fine, because everybody is different in their journey with cannabis. And for those canna-curious consumers, for those people who are looking for a resource and the next step, how do I go from here? That's really what we want to provide, is that resource of where to turn. And by working with fantastic organizations, whether they be nonprofit or services or devices that exist out there, we want to bring and curate all those products directly to the end user. No one should feel embarrassed. No one should feel uncomfortable. This is health at the end of the day. This is taking into your hands an alternative that, again, may or may not benefit your current condition. But at the end of the day, you should have the right to make that decision on your own. And so when we talk to individuals, it's really important to understand where we came from, why we are in prohibition, and then where the future will take us. And what our goal is as a company is to make sure that you guys, as consultants, have all of that at your fingertips. And then as a consumer, have a resource that you can tap into for that information. We're coming up on an election year, and it's going to be very important that everybody know exactly how we need to move forward, how laws need to be drafted, or legislation has to be drafted, and knowing who you're going to support for candidacy. All these things are very important. When someone says rescheduling cannabis, you want to shake your head and say, well, I don't want to reschedule it. I want to repeal it. I want to take it out of prohibition. I want to go back to when we were growing it on our fields and all of our farmers in the United States were using this as a commodity. We have an opportunity to literally change our country, and it lies within each of our hands. We each have a huge piece that we can play within this. And that's what gets me up at whatever time in the morning, or it doesn't allow me to go to sleep at night, because I feel as though I can be able to build these pieces to give to each individual out there and really make this movement. Education is key. I don't have all the answers. I'm learning things every single day. I learn new things every single day, because that's how quickly this industry is changing, how quickly science is coming over from the mainstream world and recognizing that there is validity behind what we've all been saying or what people have been saying for years. And so with this new onslaught of mainstream companies, we see the Wall Street money, we see a lot of big businesses getting involved. We as individuals have to make sure that we put the power of the plant back into our hands.
Fantastic, Holly. That's amazing. So I just kind of want to recap a couple of the points that you made. For those of you who are taking notes, when you think about educating your customers, or maybe not even their customers yet, they're just people that you know who are curious about cannabis, there's an element of overwhelm that people who are very familiar with the industry might have when they encounter people who are a little naive. And so as Holly was talking, I was kind of making a couple of notes about the things that she said that you might want to take into account as you both speak to people who might be a little naive, or help focus people's understanding of cannabis and the cannabis industry as they come to you asking for more questions. Because one thing I've learned, and I don't know about you, Holly, but one thing I've learned is that once people realize, once you kind of come out of the closet about being a cannabis consumer or being involved in the industry, People have a lot of questions. Sometimes those questions can be kind of ignorant. Sometimes they can be based in a lot of bigotry. And I think it's like other movements where there's an element of coming out first that requires you to be calm and patient with people who might not know exactly what they're talking about without overwhelming them to get them up to the same information point that you're at, right? Not everybody can dive right into cannabinoids the first second that they understand cannabis, and perhaps even letting them know that the plant is capable of more than a delightful high is something that might be entirely new to them, right? So when you're speaking to these people, here's a couple suggestions I would keep in mind. One, have an attitude of thoughtful acceptance for where they are. The most effective way for you to get them onto our side would be to start by being accepting of where they are and understanding that there are a few levels of growth that have to happen in order for them to feel truly comfortable. And when you start the conversation with, oh, that's so sweet, did you know this? It's far more encouraging for the person who's going to be learning about what you're talking about than being like, really? You are so full of bananas, right? Another thing that Holly said that was really on point was bite-sized, digestible information. Bite-sized, digestible information isn't just, did you know the plant has medicinal qualities beyond what you're familiar with? And give them a moment to digest it and think about it and respond and ask the next question versus peppering them with bite-sized, digestible content over and over, right? Another thing that might be valuable for you, and I encourage this deeply as part of what we consider the Blackfish Playbook, is continuing your own education. I cannot tell you how much I've learned about cannabis, and many people consider me somebody who knows a hell of a lot about it. And like Holly said, every day we're encountering some new study or some new information or some new model of industry that helps us learn a little bit more about what's actually happening in cannabis. And to do yourself the favor, and to do your business the favor, and to do the community of people around you a personal favor, you want to continue going and accessing these sites that she mentioned, Americans for Safe Access, the Institute of something cannabinoid database sounds really freaking fascinating.
International Association of Cannabinoid Medicine Database.
Okay, that one. We're going to write it down. And Patients Out of Time, things like this. Hop on Twitter, follow some people who are talking about what's happening in the industry. Read a few articles a day, because this industry is moving very quickly, and you will benefit by having a better understanding just as much as you're sharing that understanding with other people. The other thing I can't stress enough is building relationships with the people who are in your community who understand cannabis. Even between Holly and I, when her and I cross each other's paths, there's usually something new one of us has to share with the other just about what's happening in the industry that we didn't learn from following the people that we follow on Twitter or just going in the circles that we do. Creating an intentional purpose behind your education will not only make you a better entrepreneur, but it will also make the community that you build around your business and the people who come to you for information feel more warm and supported in this process that is a learning curve for them, and that also, I have to be honest, comes with a lot of stigma that is even in my own head. I can't tell you, there have been a few times when I'd be driving home from a meeting and going, I can't believe it, my business is in cannabis. Cannabis is bad, Starlight. And there's this element of having to overcome your own personal cultural programming when approaching the topic of cannabis that most people don't even realize is part of what's happening when you're talking to people who are interested about learning more. The first thing most people are going to want to do is tell you everything they know, and then it'll be up to you to coax them with good questions that you can then answer and give them bite-sized, digestible information. I would love to open up any questions. If you want, you can hit the group chat, and I was going to offer any questions up for Holly. If you have any questions about her experience in what this has been like, or how you maybe have some ideas about how you can reach out to your customers. If there are any questions, go ahead and type those in. And in the meantime, Holly, would you mind telling everybody a little bit about what it was like when you came out of the closet and what that's been like for you?
Sure. I think, and going back to kind of one of the first points that you made, I just gave everybody a real lot of information on this call. I wanted you to kind of see from both ends of the spectrum how easy it is to be confused, how easy it is to be overwhelmed. And I think that just engaging conversation, that in itself is a huge part. I also think that there's a lot of listening that we can do as well, and recognizing that everyone's experiences are different. So I came out of the canna closet officially in 2011. I was actually working as an executive on the executive board for the Chamber of Commerce in my town. I grew up in Plymouth, home of the Pilgrims in Massachusetts, and I took an opportunity that was presented to me to get involved within the town and working with the Chamber of Commerce directly. So by default, I was one of the fewer women at most of the meetings that I was at, and I was absolutely the only person in the room that was having a conversation about cannabis. I started to just ask questions. What do you think about medical cannabis? And using medical as a place of where I believe that this is a medicinal plant. And I found that people were way more embracing and open and welcoming than I ever thought possible. I think there's a lot of us in the closet. And I think that for a multitude of reasons, which we can talk about if anybody has any questions of why it might be difficult for you to come out of the closet. And my role within the chamber, I thought that would be an issue because I was also a elected town meeting member. So I represented a portion of my community. And I didn't want anyone to have a negative connotation because of a stigma that they believed. And so I started just asking questions and with some of the individuals that lie higher above and slowly trickling down and saying, well, it's because I'm actually curious and looking to get into this industry. I found that there are tons of people that need more insight, that need more help, and looking to be able to move into the space. You know, I think that it's something that we need to shout from the rooftops, essentially. And so I was able to get.
Sorry, Holly, your audio is getting a little weird. Can you mute and unmute yourself real quick? See if we can fix it.
Okay, hi, I'm here. Any better? Ew. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I think that's better. I think that's better.
Okay, fantastic. So sorry, everybody. But yeah, just being, you know, I was in a very interesting position because I owned a commercial painting company. We worked in the city of Boston. We had a lot of clients that we had to be concerned whether or not this would be an impediment upon our existing business. And I think that personal stories, for the most part, are the best icebreaker. I started talking to the presidents of our Chamber of Commerce. I started going to other associations. I started going to town officials, started talking with politicians in the area, just to get a gauge of, hey, do you know that there's a medical program that's coming to Massachusetts? Whether or not you like it or not, it's coming. What are you going to do about it, and how are you going to be prepared for it? And I think that, you know, each of us, as we kind of lend our multiple hats, in my consulting role, you know, working with different individuals and trying to identify how this is going to affect them, but also working with individuals from a personal level and how is it going to affect them within their business. I think that each person needs to make that decision on their own when they are ready to come out, but just know that there's a huge amount of us. And I think that, like Rick Steves, which is Through the Back Door on PBS, it's one of the best travel shows, if you ask me. He's an avid cannabis consumer, and he's been a supporter of Normal, which is an organization that's been in the industry for years. And so these people who we see every day, whether it be through, you know, they're an artist, an entertainment, an athlete, whoever it might be, the more individuals like that come out, it'll be easier for all of us as, you know, as everyday people to really come out. But just keep in mind that it is still federally legal. So there are some risks associated. And even the conversations that we're having right now, the everyday tasks that Starlight and I go out and do, we are pushing the envelope, and it is a fine line, and you need to understand that there are, you know, there are possibilities, and you have to be aware of them. And as she mentioned before, each market is completely different. So if you're listening to me from Colorado right now, I call that Disneyland. If you're calling from Kansas, we'll see you in 15 years maybe. It is different in each zone and where you're at, so you really have to take a look at how easy it is for you to come out of the closet. But using a personal story, I've met fantastic people that have had benefits, positive benefits, by utilizing this plant, and you can't deny it, and they have the test results to prove it. And for me, that is a huge piece. If you can have a personal story yourself, tell your personal story. Talk to the whoever it is that's questioning or telling you that you're incorrect. There's a lot of information out there. It's just whether or not they're willing to hear you sometimes. And if you can tell them that you've been able to help your child, you've been able to help your husband, you've been able to help yourself, tell them that story, and they really can be able to connect on a different level.
Holly, thank you so much for sharing. I also kind of want to mention the aspect of coming out is unique and special for the people who are doing it, and like other areas of society where coming out is up to that individual. That's really the moral of the story, is that like anything else where something is private and personal, it's not up to me to out somebody else just because I know, right? To socially remember that there are people who choose who they want to tell and who they don't want to tell. Because there are particular risks that, for example, I don't really think of. I don't have kids, and so the horror stories that somebody might call social services on their children and have their kids taken away isn't a risk that I think of when I think of coming out. And so while people may choose to or to not come out, it's their own time and their own choice in order to do that. When you think about how you are going to educate the customers and future customers of your business, I want to encourage you to think of a couple of particular things. One, true online content that brings search engine results, that brings brand notoriety, that brings broad reaching understanding to the masses, is having an online presence that just doesn't say, here we are. It also talks about what it is that you do, what you learn, and how you know, and allows people to share that information. If you're an entrepreneur and you are considering the importance of building a community around your brand, I very much encourage you to think of a way in which you can share your learnings online, on your site, writing blogs, doing interviews with other people. It's very important right now that education is very much a movement for all of us, and getting that data available for everybody else to access is very important. So keep that in mind as you are building up your own strategy as well for your business. Holly, I was going to ask you one more question before we transition into your experience with the Canopy Boulder and ArcView groups. I was going to say, how do you go about educating some of the customers that might be outside your business model? So if they are people that you met on the street or people who have yet to invite you into their home, how do you approach it?
Sure. So I can give you like a real-time example. I was at the dog park and I was talking to this individual. He was a veteran who actually had a really bad experience with cannabis. He was given a dab, for those of you who know what that is. And there is etiquette when it comes to utilizing cannabis, especially with consumers who have never consumed before. And this gentleman had a really bad experience. We've heard it before with edibles, where somebody eats way too many edibles and they have a really bad trip. I think this individual, we just started, I had my shirt on, it struck up conversation, what's Healthy Headie Lifestyle? I said, well, I'm trying to teach as many people as I possibly can about the truth when it comes to cannabis and make them feel very comfortable about the different forms to utilize it, and just make them feel like it's approachable and get rid of the stigma. I'm a successful person and I consume cannabis, and I think that that's important for people to recognize, right? So he starts telling me about the 22 prescriptions that he's on and how he can't sleep at night and he's on medication for that and it's causing all these other problems. And it was just this complete, cycle of he said, I want something different. I want there to be an alternative. And I said, oh my goodness. I said, well, you had this really bad experience, but you're still open to it? He said, absolutely. I feel like you just kind of give me more, I didn't realize that people are using it for PST. I didn't post-traumatic stress. I didn't realize that people were using it for arthritis. He's like, I didn't know that it was good for inflammation. I just thought people were trying to get high. And I said, oh my gosh, there's so much more. And I wrote on the back of the card, I said, check out The Emperor Wears No Clothes. It's a fantastic documentary. It'll kind of give you an idea why it's in prohibition. And then I gave him a few other resources, and then a doctor actually from Colorado, he's in the Boulder area, he writes letters of recommendation. So this is not a prescription. That is a common misconception. There's no prescriptions for cannabis except for, I think there's 2 guys left that actually get prescription rolled joints in a canister from the federal government. That's because they went up against them and they won. And all of that is manufactured in Mississippi at a university. That's another conversation. But so for this individual, I gave him the doctor. I said, this is a fantastic doctor. He does this for a living. He works with patients that are looking for cannabis as an alternative, specifically on the medical side. Why don't you go talk to him and see what he has to say? If you don't feel like you want to get a letter of recommendation because there is a cost associated with that, that's okay, because you'll know by the end of the conversation with the doctor. And so he was like, this is fantastic. You've just given me so much information. And I didn't want to overwhelm him. I just kind of gave him the two websites. Here's the doctor's number. Here's the information. And I led him on his way. And I said, if there's anything else I can do for you, if you want to call, if you have a question, we'll answer it for you. And so he went from having this really bad experience, he actually crashed his car. So that's just, you don't want that to happen. And the fact that he's willing to look again, that's fantastic. So really, everyone is very individual, and you have to make sure you're coming at it from a great place. And people can recognize when you're genuine and when you're trying to tell the story or you're trying to give them your interpretation. I think that's really important. And for me, I try to engage conversations with everybody, even if they don't want to have a conversation about cannabis. I am constantly wearing my logoed Healthy Headie apparel, just to be able to say, wait, what's Healthy Headie, and what do you guys do? And that will just lead me into a path of just being able to talk with them more. But really, I look at, I went to the dog store the other day, and the guy behind me was telling me about how his dog is having all these problems, irritable bowel, indigestion. Let's not forget about our animals. This is a plant that has a lot of medicinal properties. There are people who are treating their animals and pets with CBD or different constituents from the plant. And so right there, I had an opportunity to be like, did you know that you can utilize CBD for your dog? And he was like, what? What's CBD? And I was like, are you familiar with cannabis? What? What's cannabis? Do you know what marijuana is? And now you can kind of step back. And if there's like marijuana, like weed, and they're like, oh, yeah. They don't know what cannabis is. So when I use that word, I have to remember, if I say flower, somebody's thinking, what are they baking in their kitchen at the end of the day? No, it's the dried flower of the plant that you would utilize to smoke or make some type of extract out of or bake with. So every interaction is going to be completely different. Wherever you can find the opportunity to have a conversation with that individual, you can fit it in. But again, as Starlight had kind of talked to before, make it very easy, not too much information. Let them express why they think this is bad. My father died from lung cancer and smoking is horrible. Well, did you know that smoking is only one way that you can consume cannabis? You can actually put it on topically or utilize a patch similar to a Nicoderm or Nicorette. And now you can see the wheels start to turn in their head.
Absolutely. One of the other things I noticed when I was in Vegas at the conferences this last week, we went out to a restaurant at one point, and of course they were like, what are you here for? Oh, we're here for. Holly, can I have you mute real quick?
Yes.
He was just kind of asking about us and why we were there, and sure enough, when we said, oh, we're here for the cannabis conference, of course that started a string of questions. And, he was 100% behind medicinal marijuana and yet had no idea how to go and get a card for himself, and was under the illusion that he had to have medical insurance and go see a doctor that accepts his medical insurance before he could even get a rec, right? So when you take the time to listen to other people's perspective on what the problem is, you can actually help them with valuable information even if you may not understand what information it is they need at that point in time. I could have very easily been like, yeah, dude, weed, what's up, that's dope, medical cannabis is the future, and left the conversation like that. But having a bit of an open conversation and allowing him to talk about his experience gave me an opportunity to help him in a more focused way. Especially, this kind of also ties to another point I wanted to make. If you are a dispensary owner and you have bud tenders and you're training your connoisseurs on how to interact with your customers, one of the things I would suggest above and beyond all things is that when your customer walks in the door, you get an understanding of where they are at before you start asking them the usual questions of what is it that you would like. Often, I cannot tell you how many times I've walked into a dispensary and the first question is, what do you want? Well, I don't know. I don't know yet. And that doesn't lead me to want to vulnerably suggest that maybe I don't know and I kind of wanted to come and find out about extracts because it's my first time, or, you know, it kind of shuts me down for not knowing and being afraid to continue talking about it. And it doesn't continue an education that's valuable for your customers. Now, bud tenders can view their perspective as, it's my job to sell this product to people and give them what it is that they need. But if that's as far as your bud tenders are thinking about it, then you're missing an opportunity to truly create a magnetic experience for your customers that keeps them coming back and leveling up in their information and understanding. Like, so, tell me about how you use cannabis. Tell me about why it is that you're here. Tell me about what it is that you want to know, is a far more open-ended question than having me choose between sativa and indica as soon as I walk up to the counter. It's just another thing to think about. I didn't see any questions, so Holly, I would love it if you took just a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about your experience as an entrepreneur going through Canopy Boulder and pitching to the ArcView group. There's been a lot of entrepreneurs who are super excited about getting funding, super excited about participating in that sort of event. I would love to get any perspective and insights that you have about that as well. You're muted, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me now? So before we get there, just because this is it's so important, I just want to kind of go back to, you hit a great point, asking questions. Every in-home consult or experience is what we call them. Every time there's an experience with Healthy Headie Lifestyle, we're asking that individual, have you ever consumed cannabis before? Are you a weekend warrior or are you an everyday dabber? So there are some different extremes. And you know, Kent, I think you brought up concentrates for the first-time user is not really recommended. I think that having an educated bud tender makes all the difference. We have found some really great dispensaries here, and I've heard some really good things too back east, where they take the time, they're asking these questions. They're doing an assessment. Who are you as an individual? Where have you been? Where is your relationship with this plant? Where do you want to go? And we're not doctors, so we're not going to recommend anything at Healthy Headie Lifestyle, and the bud tender is not going to do that either. However, based off experience, based off of a lot of the data that we're now collecting and putting and aggregating, there is information that can help you. But keep in mind that a lot of this is journaling. It's you as the consumer, what's the experience like? What did you have to eat that day? How much sleep did you have? How many cups of coffee did you have? There's a lot of pieces that are going to go into play when we talk about the individual reaction with cannabis. So just keep in mind that each of us is going to be completely different, and respect that everyone's experience is going to be slightly different. So if somebody didn't have a good experience with it, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're out of the picture altogether. They could be looking for more education or a better experience, looking for different strains. And when we start to talk about strains, that sometimes is just the next level for the user. So really figuring out exactly from the customer standpoint, when we deal with our customers through Healthy Headie, is exactly where that person is, what they know, and where they want to be. And then giving them just the pieces that make it very easy and digestible, as again, not to get overwhelmed, because now you do have us as kind of a concierge to contact back at any point to say, now I'm at level 2. You had told me about infusions and being able to utilize this through my skin topically. Let's talk about that. And having that relationship as we kind of opened up this conversation within that community where you don't feel overwhelmed or embarrassed. This is something that we need to show to people that it's an option that we have, and you may or may not want to utilize it. But again, it's an option and it's there. We shouldn't be shouting people in the dark. We shouldn't be looking at people and pointing fingers and saying you're a druggie. Any of that is just ridiculous in my eyes. And I think it's important, again, to know that my experience, Starlight's experience, every one of you guys that are on this call, you've each had a different level with cannabis. Your experience from a child, from a high schooler, from a concerts in the 70s, whatever it is, everyone is super unique. And so we really need to respect that at the end of the day. And I think it is very important for anybody who's in this industry to provide education in any capacity to the end user is going to set you apart with your company in this cannabis space. So to get back to answer your question, we started this company, as I mentioned, because we want to help people, and my husband and I really are passionate about this plant. We didn't want people to get taken advantage of, and the Tupperware model, I think, was the first thing that we said, here's this device, how do you open it, how do you load it? Wow, we could do this in home. Let's replicate this. Let's make this a business. And it was my husband and I, and we were in Plymouth in our basement, and we're like, how are we going to do this on a national scale? We started some fantastic relationships. We started to grow very organically on our own. We had fabulous supporters, our fans through Facebook, social media, the people that we've been advocating with in the state, individuals that just have come into our lives in one form or another, have literally have gotten me through some really tough days. And we're here because we believe, and we want everyone else to see that this is the why of what we're doing. This is being able to bring somebody like my grandmother that alternative, so that they don't have to take 9 Percocets a day and be kind of not involved with their grandchildren's lives. We want someone who is taking 22 prescriptions and then 14 on top of that for all the side effects to know that there might be something else that they can utilize. And we saw that we were going to have a struggle if we were going to keep doing it on our own, if we wanted to do this in a bootstraps mentality. We really wanted to take it to the next level. We wanted to get out there before anybody else because this is a new space. It's that .com kind of era where you're seeing all these companies clamoring to get into the industry. We wanted to set the precedence and the standard really high because we don't want anyone coming out with crap and selling people crap. So from that perspective, we got introduced. We were at the Emerald Cup, which is an outdoor expo convention, essentially, for the Northern California growers. So all the outside growing, that green triangle in Northern California that you hear about, third, fourth year generation growers that are up there, they have a festival every year where they harvest and they judge all of their product. Well, sure enough, I walked down, and there's Andrew D'Angelo and Steve D'Angelo from Harborside Healthcare. And I had the opportunity back at the Young Jerks to speak with Andrew D'Angelo about our program. And the universe has a way of putting you where you need to be. And I got talking with them, and they told me about this Canopy Boulder program. And so on our flight back, we found this application, which was kind of like an online application. You've got to submit a video, you have to submit your business plan, you've got to go through a SWOT analysis, you have to talk about your team, you have to talk about yourself. You're essentially...
Holly, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Can you mute and unmute again? It's starting to get that weird static. Sorry. So sorry to interrupt.
No worries. Thank you. No, it's okay. I appreciate it. I missed that comment. If it happens again, definitely give me the wave and I'll try it.
It's still pretty static.
Is this any better? Can you hear me?
It's still really bad. I'm wondering if I'm wondering why. Now you're muted.
I can try to log out, come back in, but I'll make it quick too.
Why don't you go ahead and we'll see if it gets better.
Okay, I was going to say, is this any bad or no bad? No. Okay. All right. I'll be right back.
Does anybody have any questions in the meantime while we're waiting for Holly to get back? Is there anything that came up that you'd like us to talk about? Please feel free to make a note over in the sidebar. And, 1 second, let me get more available.
Better?
Yes, much better. Oh, lovely.
Okay,
Please
perfect.
continue. Thank you. You were saying that you met Steve D'Angelo on
So,
your way.
right, in kind of serendipitous, Steve D'Angelo and the ArcView group has been one of the only companies that back financially the businesses in the cannabis space. So we applied for this program, Canopy Boulder, not knowing what it was going to be about, not knowing what it was going to entail, and we were accepted right away. So we took that as a sign from the universe again and said, why not be able to take this opportunity and see what happens. We're in Massachusetts. We need to get to Colorado. We need to get to California. This will progress us there. So we applied for this program, which is essentially a 13-week intensive boot camp where we went through everything from refining the business model to understanding how to pitch, how to network in a room of other individuals, looking at profit loss, going over our performance, our projections, really talking to investors was the bulk of what I got from the experience myself. I've never raised capital on this capacity before, so to be able to have conversations with individuals of a very high net worth that have invested in the past, that's a different conversation than me asking my grandmother for $500 so that I can get this business off the ground. That was a huge portion of what we learned from this experience. The two people that ran or put together the organization, Micah and Patrick, also provided us with hands-on assistance and kind of mentorship. We were actually partnered with 9 different mentors throughout this program. So on a weekly basis, I was reporting to these individuals, letting them know about the progression of where we were at, where we're headed, and then also them giving us feedback into our business model on how we can be able to move forward. For that 13-week is over, we got to present at ArcView. We had to submit, again, do a webinar. We were scored based off of our presentation, and if you qualify, then you have the opportunity then to get in front of about 300 people in a room and do your pitch. So I've had the opportunity to do that a few times at this point, which has been fantastic. We won the Best Pitch Award coming out of Denver, which was awesome. Applause to our whole team. Getting up in front of those amount of individuals and breaking down this concept into digestible pieces so that anybody in the room can understand it. Because just because you have money doesn't mean that you have a high level of intelligence and you're not going to completely grasp the concept. So we really had to identify who our audience was. And that was something that I wanted to talk about earlier, is identifying your audience and making sure that you are communicating what they want to hear. So this was part of the whole process, and we at this point are fundraising. So we're out there kind of like an Indiegogo campaign, but on steroids, where we're looking for funding from different individuals. We're looking to get $500,000, which in this industry is not a lot, to be able to get our program up to the next level. So we've already secured some of those funds. We're going through the process now, implementing our software. We have our early adopter program that's out and active right now, which is essentially our first exclusives that want to get into the independent consultant program with Healthy Headie Lifestyle. So it was a fantastic overall kind of like a business, like a master's degree in an accelerated format. It's the only way that I can kind of can give it relation to, but very intensive 13-week program. And the idea is that you come out of that better than you went in. And you have all these introductions, you have all of these connections now. So we've been very successful with going through that program, and I feel like we're still in it, even though we got out in about July of this summer. We've been in LA and Vegas pitching to investors that are looking to get into this space. So a lot of it comes to educating the investor about cannabis, and they have no idea what a vaporizer is most of the time unless they have already invested in this cannabis industry and primarily another vaporizing company. But for a lot of new individuals that are excited, they look at the .com or the real estate market and they say, the next market for me is cannabis. But they have no concept. They've never consumed it, and they don't understand a lot of the pieces behind it. So we find ourselves educating each interaction of what we do, whether it's the end user, our consultant, individuals that we speak with, or investors as well.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about Holly's experience with pitching, or any questions you have about getting your business funded? Holly, I was going to ask you if there were 2 or 3 tips that you would give entrepreneurs, because you meet a lot of them often who are often trying to get you to be a part of their project as well. What are 2 or 3 tips that you would give to entrepreneurs who are looking for more exposure and potentially looking for funding?
I think that there's a couple questions that you should ask yourself as an entrepreneur. This is not easy. I may make it look very easy and glamorous at the same time. However, it's extremely stressful, and your life will be sacrificed in more ways than one. You really have to understand the level of involvement, what you need to put into it, and again, what is expected of you. So for a lot of people, this is too much. It's not for them. If you're not an entrepreneur, you're going to know this, because every time you have a new challenge, you're going to say, screw this, I just want to go punch a clock and not to have someone take care of these pains and headaches for me. Just keep in mind that, and I know I'm not trying to discourage anybody from getting into the startup world, but 90% of startups do fail. So there's a huge, the odds are against us. And now, by the way, we're in the cannabis industry, so that just kind of like explodes even more. It's very difficult and it's challenging, and it's sometimes you want to give up and you're going to want to quit. And you need to make sure that you surround yourself with a team and a community that will help you through any of these challenges. So for that person who's thinking or is in the space where they're like, I really want to start this business, or I want to start something, really kind of do that assessment with yourself and get a reality check. How many hours? Like, if you're not okay with working 12 hours in a day, then maybe it's not for you. So just keep these pieces in mind, that as an entrepreneur, as a startup company, that there's a lot of sacrifices that you have to take at the beginning. But the idea is that that risk up front is really going to flourish into a budding reward at the end, right? So that's my kind of first piece of advice, but focus. Second piece of advice. It is very easy to start thinking, well, wow, this is a great opportunity over here, and maybe if we just tweak the portion of the business, we can capture that as well. From an investment standpoint, they want to see that you're focused, that you have your model built out, and that your plan is in place, and that you can execute against that plan. Of course, if there's ways to complement that plan, you can add in and revise as you grow your company. But I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs recently that have expressed wanting to get in the cannabis space, and I say the easiest way to get in is to solve a problem. If you can solve someone's problem, you have a company or service, product or business. And I was recently talking to somebody I was doing some minor consulting work for, and they had fantastic ideas. I mean, overwhelmingly fantastic, but there was about 400 of them. And the execution strategy on this, I said, how do you plan on executing this? It went from this, it was very hard. And I have a tendency to jump around in conversation, and I talk very fast. So usually I can keep up with individuals, but she was all over the place. And the first thing I said to her is, if you were to bring this company, your plan, to an investor, the investor would they would run away. So remaining focused on what it is very important. And for me, as an entrepreneur, I mentioned this in previous discussion, but I truly believe that what we're doing is going to change people's lives. I know that we are going to make this place a better planet. If we have to start here in a couple of states, then grow nationally, and then globally, that is the plan. We want to get as many people the real information about cannabis as possible. I want to help people. I don't want anyone to get taken advantage of. These are things that drive me every day. You have to have that drive. You have to have that ambition. So make sure the reason that you're doing it is not just monetary, because that's not it's not enough to get you up out of bed every day. In the entrepreneur world, of course, a lot of hours and everything else, but of course the success is very great. You do have the ability to make your own hours to a point and be a little bit flexible. The other reason that we saw Healthy Headie Lifestyle as such a fantastic opportunity is because in my previous role, I had a consulting business and a business development strategy that I worked with small businesses in my town with. And people would want to start a business, and they would really come to find out how hard and challenging it really is. And what we do with Healthy Headie Lifestyle when you're an independent consultant, it's not a franchise, but similar to the idea where you're getting all these pieces. You get to make your own schedule, you can make your own hours, you can make as much or as little money as you want, but you kind of get to do it on your own time, and you have this backbone, this foundation that is built to help you succeed. Whereas Starlight and I, there's no one I can really look to say, oh, you've done this before, and I'm just going to kind of take what didn't work and piece in what did. every day is completely new and scary, and I have to figure out how to do these things on my own a lot of times. I might be able to call somebody and say, hey, have you ever been faced with this challenge? They might still say no. So sorry, best of luck, and that's the end of the conversation. So really kind of evaluating where you're at in your life. Are you looking for some type of project? Well, maybe, and you just want to get into the Healthy Headie or into the cannabis life world industry, maybe consultant's a good thing for you. Maybe working with a dispensary, maybe working with an advocacy group would be the better sense to start there. See how you like operating in that capacity, and then make a decision if you want to take that leap, that risk, because it is your entire life that will be enthralled in this new endeavor that you pursue.
Absolutely. That is all kinds of true. The 12 hours, the flexible time schedule that is really flexible to work all the time is really what that flexibility is. Anyways, I didn't see any questions, and so I want to go ahead and wrap up. Holly, what is it that you're working on now? How can people help you? Where can people find you online?
Well, I'm heading to California tonight, so my life is ever-changing every day, and I'm embracing going with the flow because I am absolute planner when it comes to a lot of things in life. So right now we are growing. We're onboarding for our early adopter program, and those are the individuals that are looking to become part of the Healthy Headie Lifestyle team that we're selling these kits essentially. For those of you that don't know, Healthy Headie Lifestyle provides a demonstration kit that you purchase at a very discounted rate. Then you go through a training process so that you can understand how to replicate this business model. And then eventually you'll have your own unique website, login portal that will track all of your commissions and sales as you grow and you develop your Healthy Headie business on your own. And this early adopter program is it is an exclusive kind of event. We're only onboarding so many individuals in so many locations, so it's really come in now or the price is going to rise. Right now we're offering a lot of these devices like the packs at next to nothing. There's no other place that you can kind of go out and get these items at this discount. And the reason that we're doing this is because we want to be very transparent with individuals. This is a direct selling business. We want to create opportunities for those who want to get into the cannabis industry, and we want to embrace and empower people to help others on their cannabis journey. So that's really what we're working on, is this onboarding program. We're working in all of the medical states as well as the adult use states. If you don't currently have a program in your state, you can still connect with us. We actually put you on a list, so as soon as we start hearing about legislation and legalization or medical programs, how you may be able to get involved. And we're also going to obviously let you know about any type of organizations that are in the area that might help progress that along. But really, we're looking to try to get our messaging out there of what we're doing, how we want to create more jobs, how we want to help people, and doing it a little bit different than the traditional direct selling model. This is true direct sales, and again, transparency is our number one thing. We want people to feel really good about becoming part of the Healthy Headie team, and everybody can absolutely support us by checking us out online, social media. Our website's healthyheadie.com. Our Twitter handle is @healthyheadie, Instagram @healthyheadie, Healthy Headie Lifestyle on Facebook. So you can just engage with us. We talked about it earlier. I have some friends, and these are friends that we go way back, that cannot like my page because of the places that they work. 2 of them are really fearful of losing their children. They tell me in private, they send me text messages, I'm so happy for you, I'm so proud of you, everything that you're doing. Just know that I'm liking your status from afar, because they can't do it out there. So every 5 friends that I have that can't like me or share the information, I ask that that's another way is to share us socially. Give a little social love. Tell somebody about us. Tell somebody about us if they're looking to get into the industry or if they need help. Use this as a resource in any capacity, and just, we want you to be as excited as we are about what we're doing. We really want to shout it from the rooftops, and we really want to change this industry and change this world. So any support that you can lend back to us is exciting. If you have a rich family member that is looking to invest, or you know somebody who is interested in investing in the cannabis industry, that's another way that you can kind of lend over, send us their contact information, send my contact information over to them. We're really just trying to grow the business and rolling out into each state, and we'll have our official launch next year, so that you'll hear more about that as we progress on in some of these amazing partnerships that we're putting together with some dispensaries as well. So there's a lot of excitement happening right now. For anybody who has questions, you're more than welcome to reach out directly through the website, and then also our phone number is everywhere on the website. So you can call us, you can contact us through internet, email, snail mail, whatever your choice may be. Really, that's where we're at. We're really trying to get the word out, create buzz, excitement about what we're doing, and in any way, shape, or form that you might help, that's what I'm looking for right now.
Fantastic. For those of you who might be interested, we are definitely going to be sharing this video online. For those of you that registered for it and everybody else on the list that wasn't able to make it today, you will be getting a link to this video in your email. I welcome you to send it to friends if you have a rich family member that you think might be interested in participating in Healthy Headie. I think they would find this video interesting. This is a really great starting place for other cannabis entrepreneurs. Feel free to spread the word. My name is Starlight Monday. I'm with Craft Mary Jane. We are kind of a cannabis entrepreneur education focused group. And like I mentioned previously, we have a program that's specifically for cannabis entrepreneurs. If you are serious about making some really incredible momentum in your company, what I do is I facilitate what we call Blackfish Masterminds, where with the synergy of 5 or 6 other cannabis entrepreneurs, you working together can help each other accelerate very quickly, along with having one-on-one access to me and helping you coach and consult for your business. And so it's a great opportunity. If you're interested, or if you know an entrepreneur who is interested, there's a simple way to find out more. All you need to do is text the word Blackfish, all one word, to the phone number 33733. That's Blackfish to 33733, and you will get hooked into information about the Blackfish Mastermind. Otherwise, I want to say deep thank you to Holly from Healthy Headie. I deeply appreciate you being here today for this first Insight session from Craft Mary Jane. You can look for more of these Insight sessions happening, and if you want to be aware of when they happen, the best thing to do is go to craftmaryjane.com and sign up for our email newsletter. Like Holly, I am on every social media that is important right now as Craft Mary Jane on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the great places to be, and you can keep in touch with what's happening with us there. Holly, was there anything else before you say goodbye? Oh, you're muted, darling.
I'm muted. No, thank you everybody for thank you for all the fans and supporters back east that got on the call today. I really appreciate you guys being here, and thank you for your time and attention. And of course, like Starlight has mentioned, if there's anything that we can do, definitely reach out to us, and we're here, and I'm excited to build really a great community and moving forward and allowing us to really have this plan in our hands. So I thank everybody today, and all the support and love is fantastic.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for showing up, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.